It is telling that the Conservatives never leave room to air differences between their colleagues. They want to silence their caucus and give out orders from the top.
Oh? That's Justin Trudeau in an address earlier today. So I guess contextually, it's important we try to figure out what's going on here. Tom Mulcair is on the line. Our feature brought to you, of course, by Guaranteed Industries. So, Tom, that was part of what Justin Trudeau had to say today, direct shot against the Conservatives. What do you make of that, number one?
Well, that particular bit shows that he's starting to try to get Mr. Poilievre lined up in his crosshairs. You might have picked it up a little bit in that clip. You know, Trudeau's a very good communicator. Let's not kid ourselves. And he's no Donald Trump. He knows how to read. And he's never had any trouble with a teleprompter. One of the things I picked up today, because I watched the whole thing, is he was struggling to pick this off the teleprompter. Now, it's not because he's forgotten how to read. It's probably because this was hot off the presses. He probably screamed down to communications, get me some sort of inspiring speech with some key lines in it, because you sense that this was, political campaign 2024 start today. He threw everything in there. It was a kitchen sink approach, threw all sorts of shots at the Conservatives, trying again to tie them to the right wing in the United States. Tucker Carlson was in there, the whole 9 yards. But the surprising thing for me was he was having trouble delivering it. And he's not the type of guy who has to go around with a rent-a-crowd. And yet he was there standing in front of his caucus so that they could applaud every applause line in his speech. And the overall effect wasn't great for Mr. Trudeau. Instead of looking strong and determined and in control, he looked like he was somebody who needed a stunt. And it's not Justin Trudeau. He's usually much stronger than that.
Okay, well, the other big story today, David Lametti walking away. And from what I've read, Tom, I don't know if you saw the article in La Presse, he's not holding back. He's actually calling into question, his time as Justice Minister, why he was let go. Said he did a pretty good job. He doesn't get it. And interesting, Tom, I can remember back to when the federal language bill was introduced, and David Lametti did not speak out. You called him out on more than one occasion. So I'm curious to your sort of comment today on this.
Yeah, and he's not even going back to McGill Law School. He used to be a prof there. He's going to a big, respected firm called Fasken. They do tons of work, especially in the fields of natural resources, and they have a pretty good team looking at Aboriginal issues, which is where Lametti says he's going to land. Yes, I've always been quite critical of the fact that we had an attorney general who did nothing to stand up to defend the Constitution when Legault said he was going to change the BNA Act unilaterally, when he was going after equality of French and English before the courts. These are central precepts of Canada, our definition of ourselves as a country, and any past government would have stood up against this. But I think that there might be more. Because he's going to a big law firm that has people who are connected on all ends, I don't think he's going to come out too hard against Justin Trudeau. But clearly he was... there's some bitterness as he's leaving. There's no question about that.
To your point just now, though, I'm interested because I remember we talked about him a lot, and you just sort of reiterated now, but it would seem to me that the reason he said nothing is because he was directed to say nothing by the Prime Minister. It's kind of like, he fell in line, he was the good soldier, and he's paid the price at the end anyway.
Yeah, and listen to what Justin Trudeau was just quoted in that piece.
Yes.
Saying, this is terrible. The Conservatives aren't allowed to speak up. What happened to that member of Parliament for Newfoundland and Labrador, Mr. MacDonald? Yesterday he was saying, let the members decide whether Justin Trudeau should stick around. I don't know how many, if there's anything left of his arms or his legs or his knees or what happened to him. But boy, oh boy, that guy certainly changed his tune today. He's like, well, I wasn't really meaning that we should have a leadership review. Really? I looked at your quotes from yesterday. It was pretty clear that that's exactly what you were calling for. So Trudeau is, I think it's a case of the
pot calling the kettle black.
I'm also thinking just compounded with Ken MacDonald's remarks that there should be a leadership review. And then David Lametti today, is this the beginning of dissent in the ranks?
Well, the dissent started before Christmas on Israel-Gaza. And, after that horrific terrorist attack, Israel was very clear what they were going to do to get rid of that existential threat. And there were more than 20 people in his caucus who just completely went offside with what Trudeau was saying had to be done and were taking him on, which is very unusual because, again, Trudeau's got certain skills that anybody who's been in the political game will, if they're fair-minded, will remark. And I will tell you that Trudeau has an incredible ability to deal with people. Generally, he's amazing one-on-one and with smaller groups. And his caucus has always been fiercely loyal to him. There's never been the slightest crack in that loyalty, except when it started in the fall. So, yes, I do think that Ken McDonald is another example. I think that Lametti is another example. Will Lametti write a book? Will he talk about it? Once you're in cabinet, there's some parts that you can't talk about, but will he be able to talk enough? I mean, I remember, it took a while, but Bill Morneau penned a book, and he didn't break any cabinet secrets, but he said one thing that anybody who's been following Trudeau since has started to realize is the key issue, that everything in Ottawa is about Justin Trudeau. It's not about the government. We had today, Montreal Economic Institute, big study about the outrageous increase in the public service under Justin Trudeau's tutelage. He came in, his first budget was in 2016, and since then, we've had the largest increase in the public service since 1984. I mean, it's out of control. That as well. I mean, this is the new theme. We had Minister Mark Miller saying that immigration numbers were out of control. Well, this is out of control, the size of the civil service. And what do? Well, because they're having so much trouble getting anything done, they give outside contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars to companies overall, like all of these companies together, like McKinsey, to come and do the job of the government that they're already paying too many civil servants, but then aren't doing the job. So the average Canadian is able to figure this stuff out.
So provincially, of course, getting ready for the National Assembly session to begin. Francois Legault everywhere. We're hearing from a variety of ministers. The opposition is finally speaking up as well. But then today, Eric Girard, our finance minister, letting it be known officially, he hinted at this, Tom, a few months ago, said, let's not to get too giddy here, but, it may be not as rosy as I thought. And today actually used the word suggesting, he didn't use the austerity word, Tom, because that's the bad word now. But as Kelly said, the word now is rigor. So the government's going to approach with rigor their files. And I wonder what you make of this, because this does not augur well. We know what's happening in Toronto, and for people who don't, that fight between Toronto, the city, and the federal government over money could blow up in their face.
Exactly. And Legault's number is $470 million for the same issue as Toronto with regard to money that the feds have to be ponying up to deal with the influx of refugees. So there are a couple of decisions that Legault took. He made a promise. He loves giving out money to taxpayers, but of course it's the taxpayers' own money. So he's done it more than once, $500 check here, a $500 check there. Oh, this is to help with inflation. This is to help with that. And this is to help through the pandemic and so forth. And what happened? Well, at the end of the day, the decent surplus, the Liberals under Philippe Couillard were always blamed for going after austerity, but they left billions of dollars of surplus in the government, and it's just been dilapidated on nothing. And I'm in a tax category. I'm very happy that Mr. Legault has promised a tax cut, but I think that it would have been wiser probably not to give the tax cut, because that's another bit of revenue that's just not going to be there. So I think that those types of decisions, the average person, again, there's stuff that you can keep snowing people, right? But at some point, the average person, follows enough news, reads enough, just looking at this saying, okay, you've just given these, you've given these really sizable increases in salary. That's going to reflect in salary demands in the private sector after that. That's going to feed inflation even more. What's your long-term plan? And all we could get out of Eric Girard was, we're not going to be able to meet the promise that we made to get to balanced budgets.
You're right.
Great,
That's
thanks.
all we got.
Thanks so much.
So much for the devil being in the details. Thank you, Tom.
Talk to you soon.